Welcome to this channel. If you're new to this channel, my name is Valter Pontes. Here in this channel, I'm going to explain to you how can you build your portfolio if in case you start with money or if in case you start with no money. In this video, I'm going to share my story with you, what I've done to go from zero with no money, find my vehicle, make some six figures, and then use that money to build my portfolio. I'm going to explain to you the 8 mistakes I made so you can learn from them. It's very good to see people succeed, but also it's very important to learn from other people's mistakes so you don't need to make the mistake yourself. I will see you in the end of the video. Bye for now and see you soon. Bye now. So believe it or not, I used to be a model, and this is a picture of me when I got started. Now here is my life after 6 years. I've been speaking in many stages. I have my own group, and this is Kevin Harrison in US, a Shark Tank. So I met him and I met quite a few people. So as you can see, 6 years I was a model, didn't have any money, and here is me after 6 years. So in this presentation, what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my journey, my lessons, and what I've done along the way. So as I said, my name is Valter Pontes. I'm from Portugal, and I came to the UK to learn English and to get into university, which I did. I got into university and I did my first year successfully, but after my first year I was feeling quite lost, to be very honest, because I knew that university wasn't for me, but I didn't know what to do. So what I did, I closed myself in a room in that summer and I read quite a lot of books. So I read around 250 books in that year just to look for answers. This is literally my wardrobe, my small wardrobe that I had. I read many books, and these are the 3 books that really changed the shape of my life, and I decided to start in property. So the first book was A Project Magic Life by Simon Zucci. He was talking that you could invest in property even without having a lot of money. The second book was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was a model. I came to the UK to become an actor. I wanted to become an actor, and then also I wanted to get into drama school, which I did. I got into drama school to do foundation. After my first year, I quit, then I went to university. I was feeling lost. So that book, Arnold was explaining that he made his first million in property investing. So then I was thinking, why not try property investing and then maybe later on trying acting? So that was a very good book, and a book that changed the course of my life. And then the third book was this book, also The Enforce, that you could be investing in property without having a lot of money. So after I read these books, I knew I wanted to be involved in property. If there's any way to be involved in property is something that I wanted to do. As you can imagine, when you start in property, there are myriads of strategies, many strategies that you can choose, and I didn't know which strategy I would choose. The thing is, I didn't have much money because even though I was a model, I had run out of money. Came to the UK, I have to pay the bills, I had to pay everything. So when I started in property, I didn't have much money. I did something I do not recommend, but it worked out for me. I used my student loan to pay to go to my first course. So that's in the first course is where they start talking about different strategies: rent to rent, purchase lease options, buy to let, commercial conversions, buy, refurbish, remortgage and rent, which is BRRR, commercial development. They talk about sourcing, they talk about assisted sale, they talk about all of these strategies, and I didn't know much about these strategies. This is the thing, because I didn't know about these strategies and I didn't have a lot of money, what I decide to do, I decided to pick one of these strategies that doesn't require a lot of money to start with, and also would allow me to achieve my other goals. And this is going to be clear later on here in the presentation. Now, this is the thing. Also, when I learned all these strategies, they said there are other ways you can invest in property. You can inherit money. So a lot of people inherit money and they can start buying property. You can use equity from your residence. I didn't have that. You could use pension. I didn't have that. You could use savings. I spent all my savings or modeling savings because I was living in the UK. You could ask your parents to invest with you. My parents didn't have much money. Joint venture. So I didn't have none of this. And this is the thing. Most people will think, okay, you could do joint venture. No one wanted to joint venture with me. I was new in the country. So I didn't have any of these. Because I didn't have any of this, the first lesson I wanted to share with you here is the lesson I learned from Zig Ziglar. You don't have to be great to start, but you need to start to be great. What I mean is, even though I didn't know how I would start, I knew I needed to do the first step, and I had the faith that things would work out for me. What I did, I just did my first step. Because of my circumstances, as I said, I decided to choose deal sourcing. So I would source deals to generate some cash flow to start investing in property. There are three reasons why I decided to choose the deal sources as my strategy. So the first one, I believe, is a skill that any investor needs to learn. The second one, I believe, is a strategy if in case you're doing volume, you can create a good cash flow. And the third one, eventually I wanted to be in a position to buy properties, is good to know how to find deals. Because of these three reasons, I decided to do deal sourcing. When you invest in real estate or invest in property, there are three things that it requires. It requires time, it requires resources, and it requires knowledge. Now, if you think back then, the time, I didn't have the time because I was a student, but I knew I could go to a gap year and get the time. Resources, I didn't have the resources. And knowledge, even though I spent my student loan to go to my first course, I knew I could study and I could just focus on that so my knowledge could increase. So if you see, when you start investing, you need at least two of these three things. You don't need three of them, you just need two. And it's kind of a triangle. So if you have at least two, the other one in the top, someone can come and add to you. So what I did, I went to a gap year, and because I needed more knowledge, what I started doing, I started reading more books. If you see here, this was my wardrobe, my tiny wardrobe when I was living in a tiny room. And this is the thing, all of these, sometimes when you go through things, it doesn't make any sense. But if you think, because I was living in this tiny room, when I started doing properties, I started doing these beautiful properties. So everything in life, sometimes when it passes, as Steve Jobs says, sometimes you cannot connect the dots moving backwards. You only can connect the dot moving forward. And in my life, it's been always like this. So things sometimes happen, I don't know why it happens, and then later on, I'm sure it happens to you too. You're like, oh, now I understand why this happens to me. I wanted to do deal sourcing. I start studying, and this is the thing. I don't know about you, but sometimes when you start doing something, things doesn't go as planned. When I start doing sourcing, I try everything for 3 months. I could not source a deal, and I could not source a deal because there were a few myths in the industry, and I believe in these myths. So these are the three myths, or these are some myths, if in case you started and you wanted to do the same strategy so you don't make the same mistake. The first myth was, if the deal is good enough, you will source it. A lot of people will say to you, if a deal is a good deal, you give to an investor will buy. This is a big myth because I invest, for example, here in the UK, US, in Portugal, I invest in certain parts of the country. If you give me, for example, a deal in Newcastle, I don't care how great this deal is, because I don't invest in Newcastle, I'm not going to buy this deal from you. And people were saying, if the deal is good enough, you're going to source the deal. That's not true. So the second myth was, I can only source in one area. I was living here in London. I was living nearby Shoreditch, and it was very difficult for me to find deals there. So if in case I just wanted to, do deal sourcing where I used to live, it would be very difficult. The other thing is, they say you need to do the viewing yourself because you need to go, you need to see the property because you are sourcing the deal for the investor. The truth is, you do not need to do the viewing yourself. So because of these three myths, I could not source a deal. So then what I did is, instead I focus on finding the great deal, I would find the investors first and I would qualify the investor. And the reason why I used to do this way, and if in case you start, you should do this way, is because if I qualify the investor, and the investor says to me, look, I'm looking for a deal in Manchester, and I find the deal that he's looking for in Manchester, let's say look for 2 bedrooms in Manchester, and I find that deal, the probability for these investors to buy this deal is much greater. And because I customize a tailor-made approach, is much better for the investor. The investor tends to close these deals because you're looking deals specific for certain investors. Now, your question might be like, okay, if you find that deal for this investor and he doesn't buy, there's other ways you can still sell this deal. But that was my approach. I changed. Instead of find a good deal, I would find the investor, I would qualify the investor. I would qualify the investor, I would see the investor has money, because sometimes as well, investor will say to you, oh, I have money, and then you get the deal and he didn't have the money, he needed to remortgage the property. This was some of the errors I made. So then when I did that, things start changing. The second error was, instead of I focus only in my area, I used to focus nationwide. Why nationwide? Because with the technology now, you can find deals anywhere in the country. And why would you just focus, for example, here in London? Why don't you focus elsewhere as well? Investors just don't buy in London, they buy anywhere. So automatically, by investing nationwide, I had a more pool of investors that I could track. The third one is doing viewing myself. Instead of doing the viewing myself, I use a company called Viewber, and this company is basically someone can go and do the viewing. This allows me to leverage myself rather than just go and do the viewing myself. After I've done these three things change. What is the lesson number 2? Lesson number 2 is when something is not working, you must adjust. Don't quit, but adjust. If you think Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And sometimes when things are not working, we just quit. Or sometimes we just keep on doing the same thing, and then guess what? We get frustrated and quit. Think what is not working and adjust. If in case you don't know what is not working, reach out to people that are doing well. They are doing the same thing that you are trying to do and ask them for advice. After I adjust, I went from 0 to 6 figures. Here is an article that YPN wrote about me when I made 180 grand in sourcing, and that was how I start in property. Now, I just didn't want it just to generate cash. I wanted to start investing in property. So then I used that 180 grand to start building my portfolio. So lesson number 3, whenever you wanted to start a new adventure, make sure you systemize your first stream of income. This is the thing. I was doing sourcing, was doing well. I was making already 6 figures, and I wanted to start buying properties. Why I did wrong, instead of I systemize my first stream of income, I wanted to go and buy property straight away. That was a very big mistake, because you need to start systemize your first stream of income, because if you not systematize your first stream of income, you might lose that stream of income. So here are some of errors I made when I tried to systemize my first stream of income, and I don't want you to make this error, so I'm going to be sharing with you. As soon as you start systematizing your first stream of income, you start to recruit. Now, for you to recruit, make sure that you have a good cash flow, and also you do not start recruiting too late or too soon. You just need to recruit in the right time. Also, when you recruit, make sure that you have a procedure and processes in place to start recruiting. Just not try to recruit without process and procedure in place. And before you start recruiting any member, make sure that you have your onboarding. Onboarding is like what they need to do day 1, what they need to do day 2, what they need to do day 3. It's very important, because otherwise what's going to happen, you're trying to do your job and they're just interrupting. What should I do? What should I do? So make sure you have that. Make sure they have KPIs, key performance indicators. They know, okay, this is what I need to hit in order for them to even know they are doing a great job or not, for you to know if they are a good job or not. So make sure that you have that. Make sure that you do not abdicate, you delegate. So what that means, abdication is when you give someone something to do, just give them, and then you leave them alone. That was what I used to do. So I just would give people a task and leave them. What you need to do is, instead of just give them a task and leave them, you need to make sure that you have weekly calls with them. We have daily meetings with them. You need to make sure that they know what they need to do, because this was the errors I made when I tried to systemize my business. So if in case you start generate some cash, you need to systemize your business, because the reality is freedom comes from systems. Remember, my objective was to generate some cash, which I was, and now my objective was to learn how to buy properties. And this is the thing, investing in property and doing deal sourcing are complete different skills. So that means I needed to go and learn the skill on how to buy a properties, how to do construction. Lesson number 4, educate yourself. Very important lesson. Every time you want to do something new, find someone already done it, ask them to give you the step-by-step on how to do it for you to avoid mistakes. Because remember, if you think education is expensive, trying ignorance. Ignorance is much more expensive than education. You educate yourself. As Warren Buffett says, the best education you can make in your life is in yourself. I decided to go to Simon Zucci. As I said, I was already making 180 grand by the time I went there, because otherwise I wouldn't even have the money to go there. Then I went from 0 in property to 2.5 million in property, and I also won the Mentee of the Year. And also I was nominated the new investor of the year by Property Investor Awards. Property Investor Awards is the biggest award in property in the UK. Now, this is the thing. You would imagine that I would be very happy. I was very unhappy. Even though I won the Mentee of the Year, even though I was nominated the new investor of the year, I was very unhappy. And the reason why I was unhappy was, 1, I wanted to create something that I was proud of. When I was in this tiny room, I remember saying to myself, if I ever be able to be a landlord, I want to create a property that tenants will be proud to say, look, come and see where I live. But when I started investing, I became as normal landlord because I just wanted to a better ROI so I could go and recycle my money and do it again. So for this reason, I wasn't very happy because I wanted to create something unique. The second reason was I wanted to be different. I wanted to create something unique, something different than everyone else. I wanted to create properties that are beautiful properties that people are proud to live in. So for those two reasons, I wasn't happy, but I wanted to do something different. Now, because I wanted to do something different, what I decided to do, which was bold, I built my portfolio. Portfolio was already 2.5 million. I decided to go back to the drawing board and decide to choose a strategy that would allow me to pursue my goal, to do what I wanted to do. So I check buy to let, I check HMOs, I check BRR, I check commercial to resi. And then because I wanted to recycle my money, I had, of course, my sourcing business generating cash flow, but I wanted also to be able to recycle the money. Because I wanted to recycle the money, I decided to choose a HMO strategy. Lesson number 5, let your goal guide you. Because if you see, my goal guide me, even though I knew that it would be difficult. Maybe I will have to leave some money in the deal. I didn't have any systems in terms of HMOs. I let my goal guide me. Now here, when I reached that point, I encountered quite a lot of challenges and also beliefs. So here are some beliefs. Because I'm not from here, from the UK, I didn't know where to invest. And that was a problem. The other one is I wouldn't know if I could recycle my money. If I do a very high end, because I wanted to do very beautiful properties, I wasn't sure if I could recycle my money. I didn't know if they would understand my model. Also, I was afraid if in case, and this was a problem, a value is someone who comes and value your property. If a valuer wouldn't understand my business model and give me a lower valuation, if a valuer would do that, if you see, I wouldn't be able to buy more properties. So that was another problem. Also, I wasn't sure if I could demand higher rent to justify the works I was doing. And the other one is I wasn't sure if the tenants will trash the property. Let's say I do a very beautiful property, now the tenants doesn't appreciate and let's say and trash the property. So this was some beliefs and some problems. I'm going to go through and explain to you how did I solve this problem, where to invest. What I did, I have a video here in YouTube where I share there's enough data in the UK. UK spend around 2 billion a year to collect all this data. Based on that data, you can determine where to invest. I have a video here in this channel that shares you how to do that. So then based on that data, I understood based on the data, where would I invest? The next one was I wasn't sure if I could recycle my money. You need to have a system for valuation. I have a video I'm going to put in the description where I share all my systems if in case you wanted to use my system. I wasn't sure if I could rent rents higher than the average. This is the thing. What I've done, I use that data and determine how much could I rent in that area. So what I did is I took the average salary in that area, I discount income tax, I discount if the person, let's say, went to university, 90%, I discount, for example, national insurance number, and then I would see how much would be the disposable income. If the disposable income is big enough for them to afford my rent, I would determine that I could increase rent in that area. So that allowed me to break the ceiling of rent in these areas by using this system. Then the last one, it was a belief. I needed to put the property on the market and end up at, if you do a high-end property, tenants tend to look after much better. So what I decided to do, I would take properties like this, and then I will turn them like this. I did a video here in YouTube about this property. I did a video when I got the property, and then I did a video 5 years how the property looks like. This was one of my first properties I did. Let me show you some numbers. This property was bought for 260. I spent 130k. The valuation was 450. 2,100 is net, 52k 200, and I got 40% ROI. Because I got 40% ROI, to be very honest, I wasn't very happy and I was building my system. So what I decided to do it again. So I would source properties that I didn't want, and the properties that deal was very good, I would do it myself. So the same thing I would do, I strip out the property, I try to add as much value as possible. If there's a garage, I will convert the garage into studio. If there's space, I would put office. If there's space, I would put cinema rooms. I was trying to add as much value as possible. All the properties are different. All the properties have a different design. For example, this one has 2 kitchens, one for vegetarian kitchen, one for a normal kitchen. And I always improve from project to project to project because I was creating a system. And then numbers on this property. So this property I bought for 2, I spent 110. If you see, is less because I start getting more efficient. 445 was the valuation, 53 is gross, 2,140 is the net rent, and that one here I got 100% ROI. So now I got 100% ROI. I understood the system. That is the system that allowed me to grow the property much faster. Not only that, because I've done the property this way, I won the HMO of the year. So lesson number 6, trust yourself. Now I was very happy because I trust my gut. I trust, even though people say it's not going to work out, I trust myself, and I did that. If you think is I had a business system as I was sourcing, and then I was doing projects and I understood I needed to create system. Because I systematized sourcing, I knew I need to systematize the construction side of the things as well, and I needed, because that would allow me to grow my portfolio much faster. Now, this is the thing. I wanted to do not just here in the UK, but I wanted to do abroad as well. Doing one site is one thing, doing multiple sites is a complete different ball game. Lesson number 7, make sure you have systems in place before you scale. A lot of people wants to go from 0 to 1 million without having systems. You need to have systems in order to scale. So here is some of the mistakes I made when I scaled. Remember, here in this video, I'm just sharing the mistakes I made so you don't need to make the same mistakes. So the first mistake I made is I realized very quickly there are different type of builders. And what do I mean by that? I have a video where I share where can you find builders here in the channel, and you need to find the builders, the right builder. You need to appoint the right builder to your project. But one of the ways to make money is to force the appreciation, and you're only going to force appreciation of the property by adding value. But in order for you to add value, you need to have the builders to do the work in order to add value. But you need to choose the right builder. If you choose the right builder, your life is going to be easy. But if you choose the wrong builder, your life is going to be a hell. I didn't know that you need to choose the right builder to the right project. So that was the first error. The next one is don't expect the builders, don't expect the contractors to give you the system. As an investor, we are the one who have to have the system. So you need to have a system to allow the builders to give the project on time and on budget. It's not enough for you just to appoint a builder and a builder will do the project. So the other one is you need to give the builder as much information as possible, because otherwise, if there is miscommunication, you as an investor is the one who's going to lose money. As I said before, you need to have a valuation system just to make sure I bought the property for 300, I spend 100, and the property is 500,000 or 600, whatever it is. You need to make sure that you have a system in place. So after I had all these systems in place, if you wanted to know the system, I'm going to put all the systems I have, that if in case you wanted to build your portfolio much faster, in the description below, so you can watch that video next. That system allows me to grow much faster in different countries, achieve all of that much faster because of that system. So as you can see, this is my portfolio. I have properties not just in the UK, but I have properties abroad as well, and that's allowed me to do that. Not only that, I won quite a lot of awards. Here is one, Entrepreneur of the Year. I won the CEO of the Year, Rising Star in US. Here is when YPN wrote about me when I went from 2.5 million to 10 million in 1 year. Here is when I won this Route Company of the Year. I won the 2 years in a row the Company of the Year. Forbes magazine wrote an article about me. I won the Stevie Awards. I won Titan Awards, and I'm very proud of this one because this was my ever first award I was nominated to, and the first award I won. Then after a few years, they invited me to hand the awards I was nominated to, and in that year I had 5 of my members to be finalists, and I was very proud. So they are here, 5 of my members, they were finalists, and so I won around 15 to 16 awards in 5 years, national and international. I met the president of Portugal. I became a judge of my ever first award, the Judge of Property Investor Award, which is the biggest award in the UK for property investor. And most importantly, I met also my hero, Arnold. As you know, by reading his autobiography, I decided to start in property because he said he made his first million in property. And one of my students knew that, so he organized a meeting. So I met Arnold in person. Lesson number 8, which is the last lesson. Don't be afraid to fail, be afraid not to try. The reason why I share this video is just because this is my story. These are the mistakes I made. Even though I made a lot of mistakes, still I managed to build my portfolio, and all these mistakes now I'm sharing so you don't need to go and make them. I hope this inspires you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now, and see you soon. Bye now.